see it's called control. A lot of times, majority of the times, control is learned behavior that comes from childhood. Either you were over-controlled and you made a decision that you wasn't going to be like that, and you turned out like that anyway. Or you had no control, and so you had to take charge of yourself at an early age. So I think codependency starts. I used to say I was born codependent. I was saying that in a joking way, but I think a lot of us, when we're born into dysfunction, it doesn't take us long to, join the group and find, and have our own, diagnosis of codependency. And codependency is a lot about control. Control is, control is a whole lot about fear. Fear of losing, and that you can find this in the AA 12 and 12. And that, the 12 and 12 was written 16 years after Bill sobered up. He wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the 12 and 12 expands on the steps. A lot of AA people don't like it. I love it. I've always liked the 12 and 12 because it goes into detail of every step. So in the 12 and 12, it talks about fear. Fear is fear of losing something, fear of losing something that we already have, which is, since we're talking about control, fear of losing control. Or fear of not getting something that we think is due to us. That's what, that control is fear of not getting what we think we deserve. And, by the grace of God, I hope I'll never get what I deserve. But anyway, it's about, control is about fear of not getting what we think is coming to us, or fear of losing what we already have. Think about that. And so we have to control what we have for fear of losing it. Now, if you grew up in any kind of dysfunction, and we've treated a bunch of adult children of alcoholics, or children coming out of any form of dysfunction. And, so many of them come out in their adult life with control issues. They are either the controlled one or they are being controlled. Either way, control is the problem. So, control isn't always telling other people what to do. It can be very subtle. It can be, most of us don't think of ourselves as controlling. All you have to do is ask your family or your employees, and they'll let you know whether you are or not, because that's a pretty good, checkup. So part of control is needing to know what's going to happen. What's going to happen next? A control freak has to know what's going to happen next. In recovery, this is before recovery. In recovery, what we can do is push the pause button, take a breath, visualize God's hands, and putting whatever the fear is into God's hands. But when we're control freaks, it's hard to do that, because there's something about being in control that we think we can change what's happening. And then so we do resist change. When we see change coming, and I say I was a control freak, because I grew up in a home where there was total chaos. There was no control. And by age 8, I was pretty much in charge of the house from 8 till the time I left the home at age 18. I pretty much controlled everything and didn't feel adequate to do any of it. drove by the time I was age 10. You know, adult children of alcoholics, we really need to applaud all of us because we do things that are not age appropriate. But we never feel like we've really accomplished a lot because we don't think we're doing it right. Adult children of alcoholics, because we have to make it up. We make up what we're doing, and how we make it up is by watching other people, what they do, or we read about it. You know, we get us some information about whatever we need to do. And now the internet, I mean, you know, you can go on the internet and find out how to live life on life's terms. It may not be the best way. You know, that adult children of alcoholics, I didn't mean to just talk about them. I'm not just talking about ACOAs, but when I think of control, I think of adult children of alcoholics or children coming out of any form of dysfunction. So resisting change, that's one of the things about control. We've been doing it this way forever and we're not going to change it. It has worked, blah, blah, blah. It's resisting change. And those are the types of people that are hard to work with or hard to work under. They won't change, but then you start implementing change and they get fearful and they back off anyway. So it shows up in the workplace, it shows up in the home. And another thing about control people is worry. Worrying. It's like Henny Penny, you know, that little nursery rhyme, the sky is falling, you know. We become like Henny Penny. We worry about things that haven't even happened. What worry is you pick out the worst case scenario that could happen in a situation and you focus on that. That's what worry is. While you're wringing your hands and walking the floor and, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and, oh my God. That's what control, that is part of control. You can't control the outcome, but you can control the fear, you know, the worrying about it. And trying to plan every possible outcome. Well, if this happens, we'll do this. If this, all about control. And of course, fixing and rescuing. You know, fixing and rescuing, this can apply to people, I think, that don't come from alcoholic homes, but it is really set in stone for those adult children of alcoholics, particularly if the child is young when the alcoholism, you know, is getting to a dangerous place. Like my mother was, you know, fixated on the couch. She lived her life on the couch. But what would be, you know, questioning and puzzling for a child was, you know, she would drink and take pills laying on the couch, and sometimes she would get to feeling better. And when she'd get to feeling better, then she would get up and take over the house. Up until then, it was my place to take charge of the house. And I felt like I didn't have a place. When she would get well enough to do things, I would feel like I was losing my place. Because I had learned to be the fixer and rescue, and I knew how to call an ambulance at age 8. I knew how to ride in the ambulance with my mother because we went about every 3 weeks all of my life. My mother had very bad nerve problems and she was an alcoholic drug addict. Anyway, so what happens then is people who have control get into people pleasing. They can look and see what do you need from me today, and they try their best to produce, to people please, so people will like them. Another thing is control is, I mean, absolutely about perfectionism, and you know, perfectionism we talk about it is the highest form of self-abuse. Perfectionism. Because we can't ever get anything completely perfect. You know, we can do a good enough job. That is good enough. That's good enough for today. That is good enough. I want to tell you that I am in some recovery We had a house full of company over the weekend, and my kitchen floor in by the cooking area. Usually it's pretty spotless, but there had been some spills on it, and Misty had gotten the majority of it up, but it wasn't to my expectations. And I was looking at it the other day, and I thought, I need to get, and I've been ill, I've been sick, but in case of being sick, and in spite of it, I was going to get that mop out, and I was going to mop that kitchen floor, and that's perfectionism. Now, I didn't have to do that, but the thought came to my mind because I like a clean house. If I'm the only one here, it doesn't matter. I want it clean. I want it spotless. I want everything. I've been like that forever. And that is a lot about control. Control. Now, I am much better today because I didn't have to mop the kitchen floor. And another thing, I sit back and let people enjoy themselves in my home. And before, I would be right behind them, cleaning up, picking up, making them feel so uncomfortable. I don't do that today. I don't. I enjoy my company. We have some little girls. My grandson and his wife have some little girls living in their home. They're foster parents. These little girls are precious. Oh my goodness. And so they come over and want to play dolls because I've got lots of toys. We get them all out, and I feel some shame that I would let my children play with toys, but they could not leave one out. We had to get everything picked up. We can't go back and undo and redo, but I would do things different if I was a young mother. I'd put a whole lot more focus on my children than how my house looked. I played this stupid game in my head. Every morning, I'd get them off school, and then me and the baby, Krista Kay, I would sit and read my morning meditation, and then I would read her storybook, and then we'd get up and clean house. I did it every day, and I had this thing in my mind, well, what if there was going to be a house inspector to come inspect my house? That is so stupid. But that was the order that I had to have. Adult children of alcoholics either have no order or they are extreme at order. I was extreme. Everything had its place, and it had a place for everything. And it had to be in its place or I wouldn't feel good on the inside. That is a lot about ACOA issues. Okay, so another thing about control is keeping everybody happy. That is a huge job. If you want to undertake it, get after it, and it doesn't work. You cannot make the whole world happy. But control freaks try to. And then they get mad because they're not appreciated. They don't get compliments. They don't get a thank you after all I've done for them, So control people don't do a lot for free and for fun. Control addicts do it with expectations. There is a string attached. I'm going to do this for them, and they're going to do this wonderful thing for me. Well, the other people, they don't have the agenda. They don't know what's going on in our control minds. They don't know that we have a lot of expectations, So our job is keeping everybody happy when we're in the control, and then we want them to make us happy. That's the kicker. And then we want to manage other people's reaction to everything. That's what a control freak does. Now, don't get upset. Do not get upset. And please don't cry. It's not that big a deal, so control is about trying to control other people's behavior, other people's reactions to whatever happens. So a lot of control is one thing, and I've already said it, underneath it is fear. Is fear of losing what we already have, or fear of not getting what we think we are due. Control freaks think that sometime in the horizon, people are going to turn around and do for us all the things that we've done for them. Control, people who are in control I hate to tell you, but control freaks don't do a lot for free and for fun. They do it with some kind of expectation. And they, it can carry over into, from the home. It can carry over into the workplace. It can carry, it's best if you own the business. You can't fire yourself. Sometimes we need to fire ourselves. Control freaks do. I know I used to keep my staff scared to death. I didn't know that, but later on, after I got healthier, they, had told me that because I brought in a woman that wrote a book, Working Ourselves to Death, and she would go into corporations or businesses, and her job was she would stay 2 or 3 days, interview every staff person, with the owner's permission, and then have an exit interview and that's what she did, and gave her what the information she had gathered and her recommendation. And her recommendation was, and I told her, I said, I want you to be honest with me and honest with all the staff. I just wished I hadn't said that, because what the conclusion was, I was a control freak. I would give them a job, and then I'd take it away from them, and then I'd get mad because I hadn't done it. That's what control is, and so Diane Fassel was her name, and she helped me with that, and I worked with her afterwards, because I had learned in childhood, as an adult child of an alcoholic, someone had to be in charge here. Someone had to have some control. So I learned control at an early age. I was put in charge with things that was not age appropriate for a child. But anyway, so we ask ourselves, that control goes along with fear. Fear is the underlying condition. What am I afraid of will happen if I just let go? Well, what we're afraid of, we're afraid of change. Of course we are. We're afraid of the unknown. Oh my God, what could happen if I let go? And we're afraid of rejection. My biggest fear was with my employees. I want them to like me. Your employees do not need to like you. They just need to do their job, and on Fridays, a lot of times, the staff, the therapists, the staff, a lot of times would go out to Parini's and have lunch, and they wouldn't invite me, and I got my last feeling hurt. And this is when I was running the center, I ran everything, and so our clinical director, Trudy Springs, I was talking to her one day about it, and I said, it just hurts my feelings that they won't invite me. She said, Tennie, do you know why they go out there? Why they go to lunch one day a week? I said, no, why? So they can talk about you and the business and their part in it. Employees have to do that. They get together and they want to talk about you. And then they come in, they can do a good job. So that, it wasn't that they were rejecting me. She said, you're not an employee. You are not an employee. You are the owner of the business. And they need to have a chance to sit and visit without you being there. I said, oh, okay, got it. She said, you need to find you some other business owners to be, to get with. And I did. And we have different, business owners have much different problems than the employees do. Some days I would have changed places with the employees because all they had to do was come in, do their 8 hours, and go home. When you're the owner, you have to worry about everything, particularly in a treatment center. You get to worry about everything. Is everything being met? Everything that the state dictates. Are we doing that every day? Do we have enough clients to where we have the money to pay this staff that's out there that Parini's talking about? Anyway, being an owner is a whole different deal than being an employee, So both needed support. So another thing that that people have fear of is loss. They have, even before they lose something, they fear losing it. They have a fear of failure. They have a fear of conflict. And control people, they have a fear of conflict, and guess what? They create the conflict. I don't know if any of y'all are control freaks or have been around a control freak. As much as we want peace and harmony, 9 times out of 10, the control freak is the one that's causing the conflict because something's not working just the way they want it to work. And then they have a fear of disappointing someone. Control freaks, which I'm calling them codependents, are also people pleasers. And we don't want to disappoint anyone, and so we try to keep everything on an even keel. And they have a fear of being uncomfortable. It's really important to people that are control freaks to be comfortable in their skin and they're not. They're uncomfortable most of the time. But they strive. They want to be comfortable in their own skin, but most of the time they're not until they find some treatment. So we often try to control what's happening outside of us so we'll feel calmer on the inside. Are you with me? We try to calm everything down out here so we'll feel better in here. And a lot of that is we get into things that's none of our business. We want them to stop what they're doing so we'll feel better. And then another thing, if I can make everything okay, maybe I'll feel okay. So that's another thing that control freaks. They try to make everything okay with everybody so they'll feel good on the inside. Control may be temporary relief. Whew, finally got that done. It's just a temporary relief. But it doesn't give lasting peace. I don't know if any of you, I know some of you, and I know some of you have been control freaks in the past, and some of you can slip back in a little bit. And so, we have learned that if we can control our environment, and a lot of times our environment includes a 100-mile radius, we got a big old horrendous place to control, or we think we do. And so, control makes us feel safe because most human beings like predictability. We want to know what's going to happen. And a lot of times we don't. Now, for control people, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow, is to not be able to know what's coming next, what's coming down the pipe, the predictability. Abnormal feels normal for control people. If you have lived in chaos, 9 times out of 10, you're going to establish your own household, and you're going to create the chaos so you'll feel comfortable. Abnormal becomes normal. And if we don't have that chaos going, there's a missing. Now what happens, the reason all of us are on this screen is what happens is some of us get sick enough with it that we find a substance to use, alcohol, drugs, food, something, to ease that pain. And if we've got the brain chemistry of an addict, whatever we use eases that pain. But a lot of times the control starts before the substance does. And then once we get drunk or we use the substance, we don't care who's in charge for a while till we sober up. So, but we feel safe with familiarity, even if it isn't healthy. I grew up in a very closed system. I mean, when I say closed, I mean the door shut. And my dad would say things like, the only people you can trust are inside this house. You can't trust anyone outside that door. Well, as I grew up, I realized the unsafe people were inside the house, and I had to go outside to find safety. But I had to get old enough and have enough smarts to get myself out of there, you know. And it wasn't me. I found a little Baptist church to go to at age 8, and from age 8 until really not many years ago, I was a faithful attendee at church. And what saved me was a relationship with the God of my understanding. And then later on, as I became an addict of sorts and realized that there was a program for folks like me, and I started going to 12-step programs, I found God at a much deeper level than I ever thought possible through the 12 steps. And so sometimes, we grow up and we hold on to those old ideas because that's all we know until we get help. And when, our fist is like that, and when we get help through recovery, we can just let go. Just let go is a solution. Now, doesn't that sound easy, to let go? There's this little boy. I don't know if kids play with yo-yos anymore, but this little boy had a yo-yo. And his string got all tangled up in that yo-yo, and so he took it to his mother and wanted her to straighten it out. He wasn't real old, I don't know, 5 or 6, but he, was learning how to use that yo-yo. He just got that string all tangled up. And this is a lot how we go to God sometimes. But he handed that yo-yo up to his mother to straighten out the string. And what she told him is, you've got to let go first. He still had it around his finger, holding on to the string. And what she said, you got to let go of the yo-yo. And that's what God tells us. We've got to let go of this problem that we're trying to solve by ourselves. The control, the big C, is it's our job to let it go and put it in God's hands. And we hold on because it's so familiar. It's just familiar. Change can be very threatening. We get scared of change because we can't predict the outcome. And guess what? Life continues to change on a daily basis. I mean, what happened last Wednesday is not happening today. I mean, it's a different day. And that's, and what will happen next Wednesday is a different day, or tomorrow is a different day. We can't predict the outcome, and, life is constantly changing. What changes as children grow up? Guess what? They grow up. Kristen, are you listening? Children grow up. And guess what? They leave home. I mean, they grow up. That's what is in God's plan. Now, sometimes, parents don't want them. They want them to grow up, but they don't want them to leave home. But most healthy parents, raise children with an outstretched hand. That's how you raise healthy children. Okay, you're 2, now you can walk. Now you're 3, and you're getting a little spunky here because you've already learned to say no. And at age 4, you're trying to rule the world. Age 5, each stage of growing up, that child begins to have that autonomy if they have good parenting. So what happens? Children grow up, relationships change. Good friends move away, good friends die, sponsors die. I mean, I have had 5 wonderful sponsors in my lifetime. They were all older, and they have all gone to that big meeting in the sky. I mean, and it's hard to lose sponsors and close friends. Our bodies change. I mean, the skin is holding on to these bones it's just draped, yes, my body's changing. At 83, our bodies do change. You all are at 83, but just wait, it's coming, you'll get there. Jobs change. businesses close, or new business comes in, or your job changes, a computer takes over your job, things happen, seasons change. And there are people who have major depression during certain seasons. And those are things you have to really look at. But the good news is recovery changes us. Recovery, we cannot control life enough to guarantee we'll never ever experience pain. Pain is guaranteed. If you're breathing in and out, ask Sally. Sally lives with pain just about every day of her life. You don't hear her talking about it all the time. When she goes to the hospital, and she's really good about letting us know so we can all pray for her. I hope you don't mind me using you as an example. And when she has surgery, she lets us know. She lives in constant pain, but she doesn't talk about it all the time. She lives her life. She has a nice home. She has friends. She has a church. She has puppy dogs that she takes care of. She has a program that she lives by. So control then is, and codependency are usually so deeply entwined you cannot tell one from the other. Codependency can sound like, if you're okay, I'm okay. And I would look around of a morning or at night when my husband would come in, I'd really wait till the next morning and look over at him, particularly if he'd been drinking the night before. I'd look, if he was going to be okay and be able to go to work, then I'd be okay. That is codependency 101. If he couldn't get out of bed, I, of course, got up out of bed, and it was my job to get him out of bed and get him dressed and get himself to work, So if I'm okay, if you're okay, I'm okay. That is codependency 101. If you're upset, I just have to fix it. Codependency. Instead of sitting, let people sit with their feelings. And the biggest gift we can give each other is to sit with each other when they are going through an issue, or that they're, that they've got a problem, to just say it. Sometimes we don't have words to say, and sometimes we don't need words to say. Sometimes people need us just to sit with them, maybe even hold their hand, but sometimes just to be in their presence. We don't have to fix it, and they know we don't. So if you're disappointed in me, then I need to change your mind. I need to do something to fix you, for you will not be disappointed in me. That is codependency at the max. If you're struggling, it is my job to rescue you. And I'll tell you, like I said, my territory was about 100-mile radius. I tried to take care of everybody, everywhere. I thought it was my job, because that's how I grew up. That's what I was taught. You take care of people. You take care of sick people. That's how I got my good feelings about myself. And if I didn't have somebody to take care of, I felt empty on the inside. Okay, we can make we think that we can make someone else's lives, feelings, and choices our responsibility. We take it on. It's our responsibility. But recovery is, I can love you and let you manage your own life. Guess what? I do not have to manage your life. I can care about you without carrying you on my back. I do not have to carry you, but I can care about you. And wait, waiting for a codependent is very hard. Wait to be asked, can you help me? And then, if you're healthy enough, if you're asked to help someone, if you want to do it, have time to do it, and you can give them a clean yes, say yes. If you cannot do it, if you don't want to do it, no is a complete sentence. Or if you're busy, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to go into any long explanation. No, I can't do that today. Maybe 3 or 4 days from now, I can help, but not today, no. Or you don't even have to say that. No is a complete sentence. I care about you, but I'm not going to carry you. I can support you without rescuing you. You know, that's one of the biggest gifts in recovery that we can give sponsorees or can give each other, is to watch people we sponsor. You know, I'm saying this particularly, to watch people we sponsor go through the pain of living that we went through. You know, sometimes when you've been around the program for a long, long time, I hope I never forget the pain that I had before recovery. Because when I do, I need to quit sponsoring people, because we do need that identification. But I can identify with a person that I'm sponsoring. I may not identify with everything they're going through, but I can identify with the pain of it. You know, I sponsor a couple of people from out of town. I don't do anyone in town, no client, none of that, but I sponsor a few people for me and my recovery. I have to do that. I have to do that for free and for fun. So, you know, but it's not my job to rescue them. It's my job to, you know, I have a lot of answers. I just give the answers till hell freezes over. That's not my business. My business is to sit with people and listen, whether they're a client or a sponsoree. Really, our answers are inside of us if we sit long enough and listen. And you know, guess what? Other adults are allowed to have feelings, even if those feelings are uncomfortable about me. You know, if they're having feelings about me, you know, I need to let them have them, you know. So the most important, one of the things about question about control, sometimes another person's choices makes us anxious. When they don't take our advice and go in the direction that we think they ought to, it can make us anxious. That is a test of your own recovery, that you get anxious about somebody else, what their path they're going on. Support them in that path. Can I use Liam as an example? Misty's son, he's 14, he is beautiful, he's too handsome to be, he looks like a girl, he's just a beautiful child inside and out. He's a freshman, started his freshman year in school, and he wanted a certain bed. A bed that had a loft thing on it where you could put his desk underneath. He warded his mother all summer long. Am I telling it right? He had it in his brain. He wanted that bed. He wanted that bed. And guess what? Being a good mom, Misty got in that bed. Well, last night before school started, today was the first day of school for him. He got that bed put together, and he would not stop till he got that bed put together. And he would not ask for help. He would not let them help him. But he got that bed put together. And you can call that control. I call it ingenuity. You know, there's a difference. And, you know, and what that boy felt, I would imagine, is some real high esteem when he got that bed put together. I don't know that I could put together a bed that had all of those rods and all those screws and all that, you know. One of the things, instead of rushing in and taking over children's duties or anyone's duties, wait till they ask for help. Wait till they ask for help. And because when we rush in where we're not invited, that's control. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes another's choice, a person's choices makes us anxious. Misty reported this morning that it made her anxious. Is that right?
Well, where he put it, he did ask for help towards the end when he couldn't.
Oh, where he put it. But he did ask for help toward the end, so that's good. Mm-hmm. So we're in control if we try to advise without being invited, explain over, codependents are such over explainers. Remind, oh my Lord, I was a reminder. I can still get into that, reminding, do you remember, and fix, we get to fix, in fact, we have to fix everything, push everything to the limit, rescue, guilt, manipulate, and we call all of that helping. Okay, so control can wear nice clothes, and what it looks like is people pleasing and caretaking, over functioning, and we get so many compliments for this. The fixing, the rescuing, the avoiding conflict, needing approval. We don't do these things for free and for fun. We want you to say, good job. Boy, you did good, thank you. And a lot of times people don't. And so I can be a loving person without being responsible for everyone's opinion of me. We don't have to have, they don't need to approve of everything about us. Okay, so let me see, let's get into some recovery. What can I actually control? What we cannot control are other people's choices. Now, if you've got a child that is making a decision that's going to harm them, you, as a parent, you need to intervene. So I'm talking about adults here, or older teens. Other people's choices, other people's opinions, pretty much none of our business, and we can't control. Other people's recovery. This is where codependency at 101 comes in. And, let's say, because we see it's typically, not typically, but a lot of times we'll see the man in the family, the father, the husband, is the alcoholic. They get help. Now all during the drinking, the wife has been there over helping, lying for them, taking, because they don't think they need any help. It's their problem. They are the problem. And if we can get that alcoholic fixed, everything will be wonderful. Okay, the alcoholic goes to treatment. They get it. They get into a 12-step program, going to meetings in 90 days, working with a sponsor. And I'll tell you what you're going to have at home. You're going to have the maddest heifer you have ever seen, because her job has been taken away from her. Her very being, as hard as it was, as awful it was, it gave her purpose. And it could flip. Now, men don't hang out, they don't stay with alcoholic wives as long as women stay with alcoholic husbands. You can look it up yourself. They do not. Wives, women hang in there till hell freezes over. That's in our DNA. We do that. Now, what makes a wonderful combination is for the alcoholic to get into AA, get a sponsor, and guess what? They're going to get well. They're going to live well on a daily basis. As long for the rest of their life, they follow directions and go to meetings, and do. Now, when they've been sober 20 years, they're probably not going to a meeting a day unless they're going there to meet a sponsor. It's, usually 2 or 3 times a week or once a week. Everything has a balance. And what happens if the spouse doesn't get into help themselves? What happens is it'll be a wedge between them. She will resent AA, she'll resent the women there, she'll resent everything about it. So, and I will tell you, some AAs do not want their wives going to Al-Anon. And the reason they don't want them to go to Al-Anon is because the women change. The women change and they quit taking care of everybody. And even in sobriety, the male alcoholic likes for their wives to continue that caretaking. I've worked with too many people, and not everyone's like this, but majority of them. They want them like home, pregnant, stay in the house, don't get out there among people, don't work, don't do this. They want them at home. So they'll be there to take care of them. And a lot of your male alcoholics want that even in sobriety. And they don't want their wives, they don't encourage them to go to Al-Anon. But I'll tell you, if you want to see the best coupleship anywhere, you see a recovering alcoholic, whether it's man or woman, a recovering alcoholic that's active in the program, and the spouse active in Al-Anon. there is absolutely zero failure to that coupleship, and they will live long lives. Will everything always be in harmony? No, but they both have a way to work through the problems. You can tell I'm a big supporter of Al-Anon, but many of your AAs do not want their spouse going to Al-Anon because they don't want them to become self-supported by their own contributions and use their brains, most of them. So don't get me started on that. Okay, so we can't change whether someone likes us. We can't change our past. We can't change the future. Pretty much we can't change anything. We can't change the outcome. We can't change change. And we can't change how someone responds to our boundaries. We set a boundary, they don't like it, that's not our problem. We set them, if the boundary is something that we need to set, we set it, and sometimes we have to reset it until someone gets the message. What can we take responsibility for? We can take responsibility for our own choices, my words. I don't have to tell them how to speak, my actions, my boundaries, my recovery, and my responses, and another thing, it's our responsibility to ask for help. What I do with my feelings, making amends when I'm wrong, caring for myself every day. There is a difference between control and personal responsibility. You can have personal responsibility and take care of yourself and leave other people alone to take care of themselves. Love them where they are. Love them where they are. And unless they ask for help, don't run in there and try to rescue them. It's none of your business. It is none, unless you're a paid professional. If they're paying you to help them, then you help them as much as you can. But if it's a family member and they're not asking for your help, leave them alone and go on about your life. What we say for the alcoholic is, for the non-alcoholic, is to get off their back, get out of their way, and go on with your own life, and stop off at Al-Anon on your way. Get off the alcoholic's back. Get out of their way. Give them a wide berth. And alcoholism is a horrendous disease. Not all of them recover. Some of them drink themselves to death. Some anorexics starve themselves. Some bulimics puke themselves to death. And some compulsive overeaters eat themselves to death. As family members, we must get our own help and let those that we love who have diseases find their own way. And it's not easy. And that's where the spiritual side comes in. We turn things over to God. One of the ways that I did that, and I still do it at times, I couldn't get how to turn something over. And I would ask my sponsor, would say, just turn it over to God. Well, how do you turn it over? And we were walking down the street, and she said, hand me your purse. And I handed it to her, and she took it. She was walking down the street with my purse. And then she got ahead of me, walking down the street, doing her arms like this with my purse. She said, you just turned it over. You just turned it over. And that's what we have to do, is turn over. But we don't turn it over to our sponsors. Sometimes we have to do that first, and then we turn it over to God. We talk to someone else about it, then we turn it over to God. I didn't know how to turn anyone over. And my sponsor kept saying, and everybody in AA kept telling, not everybody, but a bunch of them, because I went to AA and open AA meetings in Al-Anon 14 years before my husband ever went to his first AA meeting. So I was pretty well known around the program. It wasn't any of my business where the alcoholics in my life got sober or not, but I made it my business, and I nearly worked myself to death and kept them out of recovery. Actually, who would want recovery the way I was presenting it? So people in AA would tell me, you're keeping your mother and your husband and your daughter 1 inch away from recovery. By the time they get way down low, you rush in and rescue them. Oh, and it would just feel so good. Oh, they're safe. He's not in that jail anymore. Oh, thank God he's in the bed. He's not running the streets. You know, I would find out where my daughter was to make sure she was safe. I mean, it took up a lot of my time, you know, until I learned to turn them over to God. And how I had to do that, I'm a visual person. I visualized a beautiful red, and I still do it today, beautiful red velvet overstuffed chair. And I put Jesus there, Jesus, the God of understanding, in that red velvet chair. And then I would put my husband in his lap, I'd put my mother in his lap, and I'd put my daughter in his lap. Every morning I'd visualize that. And I'd get up off my knees and I'd go on about my business. And when they would come up in my brain, I've got to do, oh, I wonder if Ariel's drinking, what if he's going to come home tonight, wonder what's Kim's doing, wonder if Mother's killing herself. When those thoughts would come to mind, I would see that velvet chair. I thought, they're not mine. God's got them. God's got them. That's what we have to do. That's what we mean by turning it over. God's got them. And then we have, you know, then we can get well. And it sounds like it's selfish. 12-step program is a very selfish program. Do y'all know that? Because if we don't get well, we don't have anything to give another person. Now, it flips in that, you know, it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. It is a selfish program. We have to take care of ourselves first. But then as we get healthy, we must give it away to someone else or we can't keep it. Isn't that a paradox? So that's why we have to continue to turn over what we can't control, which is pretty much nothing. So that's what I have about control. I've got a lot more here, but I'm running out of time. So practicing letting go. What am I afraid to let go of right now? Think. What are you afraid to let go of right now, right this minute? What am I trying to make happen? You know, codependence. Now, we could make a lot of things happen, but we can't make them work. I mean, I worked all of the time trying to make things happen, but I couldn't make them work. What am I trying to prevent? You know, that's codependency, is trying to ward off danger, you know, and a lot of times people have to go through what they have to go through before they want anything, any change. And then we have to ask ourselves, is this actually mine to control? I mean, what part am I playing in this scenario? You know, is it mine? No, most of the time it isn't. Am I trying to change someone so I'll feel better? That's the biggie for codependence. I want them to change so I'll feel better. I'll tell you, you know, in recovery for family members is go on with your own life. It is absolutely okay to love an addict. Just don't love them to death and go on about your own life and love yourself enough. And ask yourself, what is mine today? What is mine to take care of and what is someone else's? If I'm over there in their business, the big C is glaring its ugly head. If I'm over there in their business without being asked, now if I'm asked to do something for another person, I have two choices. Yes, I can do it and do it without resentment. Do it and I'm all in. Or, nope, I can't do that today. No, like I said a while ago, no is a complete sentence. No, I can't do it. And it's not our place to predict how they're going to take our no. It's none of our business how they're going to take our no. You know what, I've never told anyone no. I came in one morning, and on my bathroom mirror was no, and I had a big mirror. There was no, every size of nose that came out of magazines, newspapers, taped all over my mirror. No, 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 no. Karen, my daughter, was about 10, and I knew from looking at the handwriting and all who it was, and about that time she slipped into the hall and looked in. She said, well, you found it. I said, Karen. She said, yep, I stayed up last night and put those up there, because you never tell anyone no. You never say no to anyone. That was a big awakening for me. She said, you'll say no to people when we need you to say yes. She was 10 years old. 10 years old. So that's what I have about practicing letting go, and sometimes it'll be uncomfortable, but we've got to ask ourselves, what is my business and what is not my business? All right, I've taken up most of the time. Anyone have anything? Any of you have problems with control?